Howdy y'all, this is Dwight and welcome back to part 3 of building a pocket knife without a pattern. We're getting some rain here. I'm not sure how loud it's going to be on this video. Hopefully it won't be annoying. I do apologize for that, but I can't really control the weather, so we will do the best we can. As we can see, since the last video, I have heat treated this and I put a long pull. All the votes was basically tied on it, so I was looking at it and I decided to do a long pull because I'm wanting to try a short swedge in front of a long pull. I've seen several knives done that way and I think it looks nice, and this is a bit smaller of a pocket knife compared to, say, Country Gentleman. I usually bring a swedge above the nick or the long pull or whatever I'm doing. So I thought I'd give that a shot, since I was basically being the tiebreaker vote on that. And that's something I was able to obviously set temperature and walk away from, and just have to come back and check on it throughout the different stages. Because this is basically a week since the last video, and that's all I've done. And right before I started this video, I just run through and clean the holes up so as I could throw a pin through. And as you can tell, my heat treat, like everything else I do making pocket knives, is just kind of quick and dirty. I don't do nothing fancy. So there's scale and stuff, but for me that's no matter. Next thing I'm wanting to do on this is take my liner. I'm going to throw my blade on here. This is why I cleaned it up, because I did sit here for just a few minutes, not very long, trying to decide what I was needing to do next. Okay, obviously we're not fit up, but what I was wanting to make sure of, because I've got to figure out how I need to do this walk, because the only thing I shaped was the butt end area, just to make sure the blade had plenty of clearance in the close position for wherever that's going to land. First and foremost, what I'm looking at is the middle hole here. I'm not sure how well we can see that. Get right here. You can see through the hole, and as I bring it onto the liner, you can tell it's coming. All the hole is on the liner, or covered by the liner. So I'm comforted knowing that. Otherwise I'd need to take material off the walk area. But during fit up, this is going to come up just a little bit more, because obviously I'll make sure the walk is smooth, and I will be taking some material off the tang of the knife during fit up. So I know whenever I go to set pretension, I'm of course going to be traveling upwards, and I'll talk about that more whenever I'm actually doing that. So I know this hole is going to be up in the liner material good. It ain't going to be just barely on the edge. So I'm good there. So at this point, I need to, this is going to be a normal step for me. Actually, I probably need to put a new piece of sandpaper on this. I just got an aluminum plate with a sticky back 180 DA paper on it, because I'm going to be cleaning the scale off, but that's also making sure I'm flat, because if I'm not flat, I need to make one side flat before I surface grind it, or the magnets will be pulling it, the pressure will be pushing it, and basically you're just going to be surface grinding a wart. You ain't going to be actually straightening it. So you need one side flat to be flat against your surface grinder. That's a big reason why I don't put it in full or whatever, because I'm doing this anyways. And if it's flat, it's taking a majority of the scale off. I'll demonstrate really fast here, hopefully. See how we got shine evenly all across the blade. So this blade is flat. And I got a majority of that scale off. So I'm not going to be immediately clogging my belt up on my surface grinder. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, because as you seen, that doesn't take very long at all. And this is very dull, to be quite frank. So I will be back when I'm done surface grinding, because then we'll be ready to start fitting this knife up. Okay, back from the surface grinder. Cleaned up very nicely. I'm happy with that. And real quick, I haven't showed how I heat treat, and there's a reason for that. As you've seen, my parts was very dirty, and yes, I was making sure at least one side was flat. In my opinion, you need to make sure to do that no matter what your heat treat process is, just to verify that before you surface grind. That's my opinion though. But I have scale on there. I have to clean all my holes out. I use a belt on the surface grinder, so that will clog up very quickly if I leave all that scale on there. So I have to make sure to at least clean the majority of it off. It's extra work, extra sandpaper. If you want to see a very well done video on how to heat treat CPM 154, I'm going to link a gentleman down below. His channel name is John Barnwell's Handcrafted Knives. He just posted a video that showed how he goes about, quite honestly, heat treating it the proper way, putting it in full and etc. Very well done video. I'd highly recommend you check his video out if you're wanting to learn the process of heat treating CPM 154. Because like I said, he did a very good video. Now my next process on this is I'm going to be fitting the blade and the back spring up using my handmade, very janky Rupel gauge. Scrap pieces of wood literally screwed together. I'm keeping these clamped in here with a big old C-clamp. This is not precision made one bit. My liner sitting on here, it ain't laying flush on the end. Not precision at all. This isn't made to be a precision piece of equipment. All it's made, or is designed for, however you want to say that, the purpose is to get you close. You zero out your open position, you leave the half stop and the closed position 10 and 15 thousandths respectively proud. Now you get real familiar with the pattern, you can bring that in closer to where you don't have to have very far to go to flush your back spring up in the half stop and closed positions. But generally 10 to 15 thousandths gives you plenty of wiggle room. Once you do that, you set this off to the side. Excuse me. Then you assemble and disassemble your knife under tension, however many times it takes, to flush in the half stop and the closed position by physically seeing where you're at. Now if you have a Kennedy jig or fixture, whatever it's called, excuse me. Now that's something that is made to zero everything out in all positions. Rupel gauge that's not its purpose. So anyhow, enough of that. I had someone request to explain why I set my pretension on the center hole instead of the end hole. And I'm not saying using the end hole is wrong, by no means. It's just personal preference. So if you're using the end hole, you're using your center hole with your liner and the liner with your pin and the back spring into the liner as you're setting things up. Turns your back spring into a seesaw. Okay, when you set pretension, don't matter if you're using the end or middle hole, your walk needs to come up and put pressure on the tang of your blade. Which means if you're using the end hole, that end hole is coming down. Depending on the shape of your liner, like this one for example, there's plenty of meat for the end hole to be wherever it needs to land to get whatever pretension you're wanting. Okay. For me, say for example on this one, the shape of this handle is a lot different. There's a lot less room for error whenever you start bringing a hole, needing to have the hole come down. You can get really close to the edge of your liner, especially if you're like me. I do not go exactly to my pattern. I decide on whims. I want to shape this a smidge different, and I'll bring it up, whatever, which means I have less room for error. Now I can still do that with the center, but instead of the hole coming downwards, because your back spring turns into a seesaw, setting it on the end, mine turns into, I don't know what you call that, like a lever. Okay, this needs to come up, so I'm coming up into the body of the knife to set my pretension. That's the basic simple reason for me, is this hole is coming up into the knife instead of coming down and potentially accidentally off or really close to the edge of your liner. Nothing wrong with guys that use the end. Personal preference, just me. I have less mistakes personally by using the center hole because I know it's coming up into the handle. Okay, now with all that out of the way, I'm going to get this set up and I will be back. Well, I have everything fit up and have it under tension. Got the spine cleaned up to the liners on the back spring. I just did a real quick start onto the spine of the blade, so you can tell there's just a tickle right there that I'm still going to need to smooth out. I'm just getting it to where it'll be working, get my back spring flushed in the half stop and the closed position here. It's going to be a very nice medium pull, I do believe. At this point, the action is sounding pretty good, so whenever, of course, the blade gets ground and things are pinned together and everything is seated, I do believe it's going to turn out halfway decent. Spine is flowing nicely. I like how the long pull's sitting there. It's just right above the liner. And it's almost, I didn't really plan it, it's all centered a little bit, but it's almost centered the handle. But anyways, this is going to be my stopping point. That's all the time I can put into it today. Speaking of time, getting the blade and back spring fit up, getting the back spring flushed in the positions and shaped with the getting the action set how I want it. I basically have an hour of work time in this, so that kind of gives you an idea the amount of time it took for me to do what I did today. Like I mentioned, the fitting the blade in the back spring took me a little longer because I was trying to be a little more careful with it. So anyways, for everyone that's following along and watching this video series, I do thank you. Until the next video, y'all take care.